50 clients at the moment, which is pretty much. And I work in different cities throughout the Netherlands, from the south, like Eindhoven. I don't know if anyone who's listening is even familiar with those cities, but it's a city in the south. And then there's Amsterdam, which I think is pretty familiar to everyone. And then everything in between, pretty much. So I'm like basically a traveling circus throughout the week.
Welcome to Career Coaching Secrets, the podcast where we talk with successful career coaches on how they built their success and the hard lessons they learned along the way. My name is Davis Nguyen, and I'm the founder of Purple Circle, where we help career coaches scale their business to $100,000 years, $100,000 months, and even $100,000 weeks. Before Purple Circle, I've grown several 7- and 8-figure career coaching businesses myself, and have been a consultant at 2 career coaching businesses that are doing over $100 million each. Whether you're an established coach or building your practice for the first time, you'll discover the secrets to elevating your coaching business.
Welcome to Career Coaching Secrets Podcast. I'm Kevin, and today we are joined by Karolien Koolhof. She is the founder of Quiet Quality. She's doing a degree in psychology right now, which was super interesting. Welcome to the show, Karolien.
Thank you. Thank you for having me today.
By the way, 6 years is not a short amount of time. It seems like you've been in the game for quite a bit. I would love to start at the beginning, start with the lore, and ask you, what was the moment that when you realized that you wanted to become a coach?
Well, I think there was quite some time that passed before deciding all of that, because as a kid I wanted to be a writer first, because I was always writing stories and poems and everything on my wall. So at first I studied to become a journalist. I studied languages and then journalism next to it, and also worked in journalism for almost 10 years. But people kept on telling me, like, you need to be more out there, you need to be more outspoken, share yourself. And that was something that I recognized from kindergarten, where they already wrote that on reports, like, she appears to be a little bit quiet or even shy, and we're not sure, like, she's even socially strong enough in order to do, like, the next level in high school and stuff. So that really made me question myself. So I enrolled myself into an MBA program, which is quite a heavy thing to do in order to work on yourself. But I did that because, yeah, I really thought that there was something lacking in my own career in terms of maybe leadership and then moving forward, but also skills that I needed to do my job in the right way. But the funny thing about that whole program is that I discovered so much about myself, my own personality, is that it kind of, I don't know, lit a kind of inner fire within me in order to do something with that, with the discovery of, hey, I'm a more introverted person, and that's just totally fine. It's just different maybe from other people, but it's totally fine. And now I want to share that with the rest of the world. So that was basically the start of that idea of doing that. And then it took another year in order to build all of it. And it was just before COVID hit, so it was the worst timing ever. 7 years ago that I decided it, and then 6 years that I'm actually doing it.
Yeah, and I'm so curious, like, everyone talks about target audience and all that. And so I'm kind of curious, how did you decide who you want to help? Was it other introverts like yourself? I would love to hear the story of how that developed.
Yeah, so that was really based on my own story of discovering, like, hey, I am more introverted. It appears that people consider that something that's not good or something that you should change or get rid of. And then discovering that it is not at all the case, that it is just a normal personal quality like others out there. But that was not just that, because then when I enrolled in coaching training, I also ran into someone who asked me, like, okay, I hear your story, but I also hear some things that might be linked to giftedness. And at first I really laughed, because I'm totally bad at numbers and in doing math and stuff in school. I cannot even do math, so how can I be gifted? But then, because I'm a very curious person, I started reading about it. And then, yeah, little by little, I also started discovering stuff like, yes, this indeed also seems familiar to me. So that was like a second layer that I added later on. When I first decided to also help other people who recognize themselves in giftedness, I discovered that about 1/3 of people who are gifted have, like, serious issues that you cannot really help with as, like, a normal coach. I decided to start studying again psychology, because I really saw I could not help all of those people, and it made me cautious as to who I'm actually helping and who I cannot help, because you really have to make that decision, like, okay, is this person someone that I can really help or not? So I actually have like different groups of people that I help. It's people who consider themselves as introverts and people who consider themselves as gifted, but then also both, like a mixture of both, because I'm a mixture of both. And slowly but steadily, I'm even growing more towards neurodiversity, because underneath all of that, what I see happening a lot is that people who are neurodivergent or who have like a brain that functions slightly different, like ADHD or autism or dyslexia, oftentimes I come across some kind of conviction like, hey, I'm not good the way I am, just like I was feeling before, right? Because people kept on telling me like, you need to be more outspoken and not being understood for all of the innovation that I wanted to start in the field of journalism. But it is a common theme that I see coming back all of the time. People feeling different, adapting because of that feeling of being different in some way or the other. So I would say that I'm slowly but steadily growing more towards that bigger, broader group of neurodivergent people who feel like they don't belong or that they should change.
Bring up a really interesting point. One of my buddies, he's introverted, and his name is Chris Doe, and he labels himself as a loud introvert, which is really interesting. But I'm curious from your perspective, what do you feel like most people get wrong about introverts and also gifted people, or maybe the intersection of both?
Yeah, so let's start with introversion. What I hear a lot is that people see introversion as the same thing as shyness, which is not at all the case, because introversion is all about the way you recharge your energy. An introvert prefers to be alone now and then in order to recharge. That is not because he or she doesn't want to be with other people, but it's just out of necessity because the brain is just overstimulated and needs a moment in order to recharge. But if we're talking about shyness, that is way more linked to social situations where people don't feel at ease, where they feel discomfort interacting with other people or don't know what to say. Really something else. Of course, it can cause the same kind of behavior, right? Because people might pull back or might not show themselves, but it's a different reason why they're doing that. So introverts are not shy, and also they're not afraid to stand on a stage and speak up, show themselves. Yes, it can be overstimulating because I sometimes do that too. I speak in front of larger audiences and it also, costs me energy, but it's not like I'm afraid of doing it. I find it important to share my message with the world, and I take it for granted that sometimes I lose some energy and then I recharge that right after. But that's another thing that people think, like, you don't dare to speak up, you don't dare to take up space, and you don't show yourself. Oftentimes that is also because of a preference of giving space to others and not taking that much space yourself. Just a question of balance, I would say. So that's the introversion part. And then for giftedness, I would say that oftentimes if I talk about that, people think like you're some kind of Einstein or something, that you're good at everything, which is not at all the case, because every gifted person is different. Also, their qualities are different. One might be good at languages, the other at math, even sports or music or whatever field you can think of. It's way broader than just IQ, but the only way to measure it is still IQ, which makes it pretty difficult if you don't excel in like the academic kind of world where it shows, then you might even be overlooked. And there's even research that shows that for people who have like an immigration background, they tend to be overlooked, and the giftedness is often not seen because people are so biased towards that. Like they have this certain image of some kind of professor who knows it all, but it has all kinds of faces and shapes, and you should really look further than just IQ, I would say.
I'm kind of curious, when people come to you to work with you, what are there general patterns that you kind of notice, or certain themes of struggles that your clients are kind of facing when they come to you?
Yes. So a lot of times it's about self-image, right? Like I feel not good enough, or like I don't belong, I feel strange. And then oftentimes they've created these kinds of coping mechanisms, like I just do everything perfectly in order for people to accept me, or I just adapt all the time in order for people to accept me. And that really makes them like very distant from themselves, losing their inner core and knowing what they want themselves because they're so focused on the outside world, forgetting like what's inside and what they actually need. That's a strong one. And then of course career coaching, where people tell me like, yeah, I'm not sure if I'm even in the right place or if I'm still challenged enough. I feel like I don't have enough challenging stuff in my job and I want to change that, but I'm not sure if I need to like leave the place where I'm at right now or if I need like another place to work. So that's one. And then the third layer out there is the leadership one. So people who are leading teams, feeling like, okay, as an introvert or as a gifted person, how do I actually do that without losing my own strength as a person? Really being true to myself as a leader, or even how can I develop myself in order to become more of myself in that leadership role.
It sounds like your work has a little bit to do with like feeling misunderstood, maybe feeling like being in situations where they're not necessarily accepted sometimes, or just complete misalignment in their career. What makes me really, really curious is like, how do these people typically find you? Like, let's talk about your marketing for a second. Like, how do they discover Karolien, I guess?
Well, there are all kinds of ways. Podcasts like these, right? But I also wrote a book on introverted leadership. So sometimes people read that, and then after reading that, they really can recognize themselves in the book and contact me saying like, okay, I want to do something with that. So that's another one. And then there's a weekly blog that I write also about all kinds of topics that I deal with during coaching sessions. That too is often very recognizable to people. So they contact me whenever they feel like, yes, this really hits the spot and is what I want to work on. So that too. I have my own podcast on introversion and introverted leadership, all kinds of topics. There's a monthly newsletter that I have. Well, I have a background in journalism, so that really helps me in order to know, like, okay, how can I do marketing and how can I make sure that people know what I'm doing, because that is what it's about, right? So that's how. And then now it's also happening that people refer to me. I had like a couple of people being referred to me throughout the last couple of months. So that's a thing. And then even someone who came to a workshop that I did, and then afterwards told me like, yeah, I want to work with you. So that's even another way of like getting people to know what I'm doing and then having them decide to work with me.
And I'm curious because, like I mentioned earlier, I think you've been in the game for about 6 years now. And have you tried any sort of marketing in your coaching business that has not worked out, or you experimented with it and it did not go as expected? Kind of curious about that.
In terms of marketing, not sure, but I did have like a program that I made with another coach, which didn't really align, I think, with my typical client. So there was not something that hit off, I would say. So I just abandoned that altogether in the end because I didn't feel like it was really aligned with what I'm doing in the end.
That's interesting. What do you feel like the misalignment was during that time?
And that was totally catered towards overstimulation. And I created that together with someone who is specialized more in that field of work. And I feel like a lot of clients that I have don't necessarily struggle with that much of overstimulation. It's just other challenges that are linked to introversion or giftedness or neurodiversity in the broader sense, but not necessarily overstimulation. So I think in that sense, it was a misfit in terms of offering.
As you reflect on your coaching career, I guess, or your coaching business, what sort of challenges have you kind of faced when it comes to trying to find clients, I guess?
The beginning was the hardest for that one because, as I said, I started right before COVID hit, and I had thought of two pillars within my company, one being one-on-one coaching sessions live, and the other being workshops for groups also live. And during COVID times, it was not possible to see people live, so that was already pretty challenging. And I also experienced that people weren't that eager to do those kinds of things during that period. So in that time, it was really hard to get people to know that I was there. I did have quite some coaching sessions, but it really took, I think, 1.5 to 2 years before it really hit off in terms of clients contacting me.
Was it pretty sudden or was it a gradual uptick?
I would say gradual, yes.
Let's also talk about like the business actually for a second too, because you mentioned doing one-on-ones, and one of the things I love about this podcast is discovering what works for different coaches at different points of their stages, right, of their business. Some of the previous guests have talked about doing one-on-ones, others do group coaching, there's other modalities, but I'm just kind of curious about your main coaching modalities. Like what sort of modalities have you experimented and offer currently right now?
So I experimented, well, of course, with one-on-one, but also group coaching. I did that once because, yeah, it was like a special request. And it was also something that I really enjoyed because it offered me the opportunity to look at like the whole system, to work with that. And it also had an effect because it was like a question of, okay, we have one person who's a little bit more introverted within the team and the others seem to be a little bit more towards the extroverted side. And in the end, they understood each other more. Yeah, that was pretty nice and successful, but it's not like an offering that I put on my website because I think my real strength lies in more the one-on-one coaching. Well, being an introvert myself, and then also the giftedness, which really, yeah, makes it sometimes overstimulating to work with big groups, really big groups, I would say. It offers me the opportunity to really be with a person because if I do one-on-one, well, one of the strengths that I have is listening really well and then also connecting with what I hear, really working with whatever comes up during the session. And I think that's easier one-on-one than if you're in like a bigger group because then it's easier to miss certain signals.
Yeah, or sometimes what I've seen in one-on-one coaching as well is like people, maybe there's a topic that they want to bring up, but they don't want to like tell everyone.
Yeah.
So I could see that happening. That's
Yes.
really interesting that you've like experimented with group coaching and decided not to offer it as well. Since it sounds like your main offering is one-on-one coaching, I'm curious, how do you handle your current client capacity and all that too? Like, how do you balance that and not burning out?
Good question, because I have like 50 clients at the moment, which is pretty much. And I work in different cities throughout the Netherlands, from the south, like Eindhoven. I don't know if anyone who's listening is even familiar with those cities, but it's a city in the south. And then there's Amsterdam, which I think is pretty familiar to everyone. And then everything in between, pretty much. So I'm like basically a traveling circus throughout the week. So one day I'm in Utrecht, and I'm in Rotterdam, and I'm in Amsterdam. So what I try to do is clustering the sessions in like one city. Like if I have one session in Amsterdam, then I want to do two because it costs me time and energy to go there, right?
So you meet in person then,
Yes.
not.
I meet in person, yes. I do some online coaching, but most of it is face to face.
Oh, that's really interesting.
A lot of
Yeah.
people prefer that. Yeah, of course, during COVID, most of it, well, everything was basically online, and I also discovered the power of that. Nowadays, people often prefer to do one on one live coaching.
How does that affect you as an introvert?
No, I think I've arranged that pretty well for myself because there's traveling involved, right? So I have the train ride to go there just by myself. Oftentimes I get to the part where people need to be silent. We have like a silent kind of carriage in the Netherlands that you can go to. So oftentimes I choose that one in order to just read something or maybe just staring out of the window, looking outside. So that's like contemplation time for about an hour before the sessions start. And then also going back is the same thing. So that's like a nice start of the day and an end of the day. So that those are like most natural kind of breaks for me as an introvert, not to be overstimulated by it. And then also I don't find coaching sessions that tiring because it also brings me a lot of energy. I really get energy from talking to other people, from discovering how they're wired, what makes them tick, and how they can actually move forward. It's really rewarding work to do every day.
As you were speaking about the train, I was thinking about my times in Japan and how it was like so quiet there. It reminds me of a very
Yeah,
similar-
I've been to Japan. I loved it.
Yeah.
That is just such a perfect country for introverts.
As you know, they have like the certain restaurants where it's just like blocked off by yourself. And, like, no
True.
talking.
Yeah, that's great.
Something I'm also curious about, obviously you don't have to give any hard numbers, but I love to talk about pricing strategies since this is where a lot of like coaches struggle the most sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And so how do you structure your pricing? I've heard some coaches, they do hourly, some do like a retainer, some do value-based or like outcome-based. Like what pricing strategies did you use to determine your pricing for your coaching offers?
Well, I work with packages,
Mm.
so you do kind of buy an outcome because it's everything we do. It's not just the live hours, but I also have my own online academy that you get access
Mm.
to if you work together. All kinds of tools like personality questionnaires, career questionnaires, all of that is included. And there's the rent of the room, there's the travel expenses, there's the preparation. I've calculated like, okay, how many hours and what value does all of this have? And based on that, I've created packages going from 4 sessions to 6 sessions, really depending on the kind of question that people have. And I always make sure to have like an introductory meeting with people in order to talk about, okay, what package suits you best.
Mm. That's really interesting too. I'm kind of curious, like I'm sure when you first started, there were a lot of things, there are some things that you probably didn't anticipate. And I'm curious over as time has gone on with your business, what boundaries have you had to kind of take into account or set in your business, whether that's your time, the pricing? I'm kind of curious about that.
Well, I think it mainly has to do with cancellations at the
Mm.
last moment because I sometimes see that people seem to find it very easy to cancel at the last moment, whereas I need to rent a room for sessions that I need to pay for if I don't cancel that like early enough.
Mm.
And in the beginning, that was not something that I charged for, right? Because I
Mm.
thought, okay, oftentimes they had like a reason for doing that. I've changed that because it is costing me time and money, those cancellations, or even if they don't show up. So for that, yeah, I decided if you don't show up and don't cancel like 24 hours before, then I need to charge at least the room because I'm paying for it. Luckily, it's not something that happens every week, but sometimes it does happen. And that was like a decision, like, is that something that I'm going to do? But yeah, I do that now.
As you are kind of evolving your coaching business, I'm kind of curious, where do you want this business to take you in the next few years? Do you have any secret dreams, big ambitions that no one knows about? Curious about that on your end.
Well, since I'm studying psychology, well, might not be that secret as a dream, but I really want to move more towards psychology and yeah, really becoming a psychologist in the future. And I'm already incorporating a lot of that stuff into what I'm doing, deepening the things that I'm doing, and also explaining stuff about how the brain works and all of that. But so that's also gradually, I would say, that I'm moving towards that point. And it also gives me the opportunity to already try things like, okay, what works for me and what doesn't. So that's one thing. And then, as I said, I'm also slowly but steadily moving more towards neurodiversity coaching, right? In the breadth of it, being able to help, yeah, everyone who feels a little bit different or is struggling with the feeling of being different in one sense or the other, accepting themselves, because underneath everything that I'm doing, there is this drive in order to get people to accept themselves as they are, not to adapt, stop adapting.
The type of clients you mentioned, neurodivergent clients. Has the thought of like having other coaches, hiring other coaches under your coaching business ever crossed your mind or anything like that? I'm kind of curious, like any of those ambitions as well.
Yeah, it has. And at some point, I also wanted to create like a collective of coaches who are in the neurodiversity space somewhere. But then I discovered that it was already there, and I decided to join them. So I'm also part
Oh.
of a bigger collective of neurodiversity coaches. I'm already doing that. And there too, I do workshops and sometimes coaching, so that is something. But yeah, I think at some point I might be interested in sharing my way of working with others so that they are able to do it in the same way, and then being able to help even more people. And then maybe I would choose to do like the more challenging clients and leave other cases or people who live like further away to other coaches who are trained in the way I'm working.
It sounds like that's probably like quite a whiles away, maybe like a few years, maybe.
Yeah, I don't think it's that distant.
Oh,
I
okay.
think I'm a full psychologist, so to say it. I
Yeah.
think that would be a
Kind of curious too. What I've noticed through a lot of business owners that us are suffering behind the scenes and no one knows. And so I'm kind of curious about the challenges and bottlenecks that you're noticing in your business right now. Most people wouldn't know about or see from the outside?
I think the biggest one would be like juggling my time because I'm also a mother. I have a son of 4 years old who is pretty active, and also there, yeah, I want to be like a good mother to him. I want to be with him, but I'm also a business owner, and I have a husband too who deserves some time and attention. So I think that is like the biggest struggle. So how do I spend my time? How do I share it? Like, how much do I give to the business and how much do I give to my family? Because that's also just as important. And I've even made some decisions in order to deal with that, like not to work with certain intermediary clients anymore that I don't feel, that are maybe suitable to me. I don't feel as strong a connection with, so that's a choice. Or even to not do certain speaking gigs if I don't feel like it, or if it's at a moment that's not convenient. So I really make deliberate choices in order to know, like, okay, if I'm doing a certain thing, then it means that I cannot spend that time with my family. So is it worth it? That is really a question that I'm asking myself nowadays.
I never really took into account with the family aspect. Well, but that brings up a really, really great point. Speaking about intentional decisions, I have a mini game if you're open to it. It's called Good Investment, Bad Investment.
Mm-hmm.
And so, what I'm curious about is what has been the best investment on your coaching business so far, and the worst investment that you kind of wish you got your money back from. It could be anything from coaching, training,
Yeah.
ad, marketing, anything.
Does it need
But
to
curious
be
about yours.
money spent or can it also be time spent?
Mm, why don't we do like one of each if you're open to it? Love to hear perspectives of each. We can start off with the money ones and then we can go to the time ones.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so shall I start with the
We
money
can start
ones
with
then?
best investment. We'll start with best investment.
Best investment. I would say the training, like money wise, right? I think that the core talents training, but then also the psychology courses I'm taking, which are, quite costly in the same.
Mm.
But they really gave me like the depth in what I'm doing, and they also help me in order to, be different from other coaches that don't have that same knowledge, and really make me unique, so to say.
So what
Hmm.
was the best investment for that?
Well, that was the book, definitely, because I spent a
Oh, writing
lot
the
of
book.
time writing my book. Yeah, it didn't cost me money or anything, just time. I spent like 9 months writing that. But it really was something that helped me to be known as someone who's working with this theme of introverted leadership. And still, every month, there are people coming to me saying, yeah, I've read the book and it was so familiar to me, everything you wrote.
How about worst investment?
Phew, oh, money investment. What did I even invest in? Let's see. Is there something that I paid for that I did not like? Maybe all of the books that I've been buying. I've been
Ooh.
buying quite a lot of books in order
Mhm.
to get more knowledge, but there's like a whole pile of books that I still haven't read. They're still
Mm.
laying around here in my room. And I just need the time to read them, but I don't have the time to read it. So it's better to just do a course where I actually need to do it than to just
Yeah.
buy a book and just let it be there.
Yeah, that's a lot of back and forth train rides that you have to take to be able to read
Mm,
all those books. Yes.
true, very true, yeah. I just keep on buying books. I don't know why.
There's that I forgot what's that. There's a Japanese term for that. It's like I forgot what it is. I'm not even going to try to pronounce it, but it's where you collect all these books and never read them. I have
Okay.
that.
Oh, just let me know if you find it.
Yeah. Kind of curious from your end too. How do you decide what to invest in and what's your kind of decision making process for that? So, for example, you mentioned the psychology programs, which
Yeah.
were quite costly, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it does take time away from your child as well. So,
Yes.
curious about your decision making process on that.
Well, it's basically because I have a long-term strategy, right? Because I did all kinds of coaching training, and then after doing that, it was like, okay, what is the next step to me? And I saw that while talking to clients. And oftentimes I saw like a deeper layer, right? Like a deeper problem that I could see, but that I cannot deal with. And that really always gave me this kind of itchy feeling like I want to do something with it, but I don't know what. So that to me really was the reason to try and look for courses that could help me. And then of course there's all kinds of coaching training that you could do, but again, like the MBA program, I just wanted something that was really strong and powerful. Just decided to enroll in psychology just to see how it went, right? Because I started with like one module each time, and then after that it became really serious, and now we're already in the third year. But yeah, it was really this drive in order to help people even better.
I'd like your final advice on something. Hopefully this never happens to you, knock on wood. But let's say your business kind of disappears overnight. And you have to start all over again. 0 followers, 0 clients, 0 relational capital. And let's even say you don't even have your book too, right? But you have all the wisdom that you have now. What would your first 90 days look like?
Maybe writing another book.
Really?
Yeah, but not just that, also thinking of the offering, but also not waiting too long, because also running a business is about just doing it, and then while doing it, you see what works and what doesn't work, and then you can always adapt when you're on it. Because what I see happening a lot is that people keep on like changing things or like perfectioning things, but perfection is never going to happen. So just start and see what happens and then adapt along the way. I'm still doing that. I'm still adapting. My offering can still change if I feel like I need to add something new that I've just learned. So it keeps on changing. It's never static. So just start somewhere and see how it goes and adapt based on that. It's one big experiment, really.
How would you get your first clients in your mind during those first 90 days?
Well, they need to know that I am there. So, of course, marketing is a big thing for that. So, ASAP, trying to appear in the media, writing stuff, appearing in podcasts, just any opportunity in order to be seen for what you're doing, I think is very important.
Are you big on content marketing too, on like different platforms? Because I know you mentioned the book, you mentioned the blog.
Yeah, but also meeting in person. That is what I did a lot when I started. Just meeting with other entrepreneurs who did like similar things for them to refer to me. And that takes some time, but I think it's a very good investment also to do that.
Thanks so much for your insights. Karolien, how can people find you? How can people connect with you?
So my website is quietquality.nl. It also has an English version where you can read weekly blogs. And then on LinkedIn, there's also quite a lot of information. If you just type my name, you will find it. And yeah, feel free to reach out if you want to know more or just chat about what you are experiencing as an introvert or a gifted person, or even both. Feel free to reach out, because I always like to have these conversations with people who feel like they recognize themselves in that story, because the more people know about that and the more people consider that as a strength, I think the better.
And what's the title of your book, by the way?
Introverted Leadership. You can find it on Amazon if you're interested.
You mentioned it so many times. I was like, ooh, people got to know the name of the book too. So
Yeah, for sure. Thank you for asking.
Cool. It was such a pleasure having you on here. I really appreciate your openness and kind of like I'm actually on the other side. I'm actually like an extreme extrovert. So I'm always very curious about the experiences of someone who's on the other side, who's more introverted and all that. And so thank you for enlightening me on that. And then thank you for being so generous about sharing how you price things and all that, your marketing strategies. I appreciate that transparency. Hopefully we'll have you for part 2 or something, but it was such a great pleasure just speaking to you about all this as well.
Yeah, no problem. It was really fun talking to you. And thanks again for having me today.
Thank you.
That's it for this episode of Career Coaching Secrets. If you enjoyed this conversation, you can subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you're listening to this episode to catch future episodes. This podcast was brought to you by Purple Circle, where we help career coaches scale their business to $100,000 years, $100,000 months, or even $100,000 weeks, all without burning out and making sure that you're making the impact and having the life that you want. To learn more about our community and how we can help you, visit joinpurplecircle.com.